Hello, Nyserians. Welcome to your Feature Friday number 2, where we will discuss Kickstarter do's and don'ts for running your own campaign. This is especially relevant for video game creators. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started.
The first thing to do is to set an achievable goal that covers the expenses to create the most viable product. Early on, we had a goal set at 30K, which if we had done that, it would have failed as a Kickstarter. So that means you have to be realistic. You have to ask exactly what you need to finish your product. Nothing more, nothing less. This really just includes what you need to finish the game in our case. Most games that successfully fund are less than 10,000. And if you really want to hit that 100% mark early on, you really want to actually, because backers are more likely to back if they've seen it's already hit the funding goal.
Have your reward tiers decided on before you start. Essentially, you can't add onto tiers or change them later if they have people who've already backed them. So, like us, we wanted to add something like the digital art book to the Bard tier and change its amount to reflect the edition. We would have to create a whole new Bard tier because there are already people who backed the current one. Our advice for you guys is just make sure you're 100% sure about the reward tiers before you start.
Don't promise anything that you can't promise. You have to have all your approvals. You should have all your approvals ready for consoles, platforms that you want to have your game on. It's best to be conservative in this area and just let people know that it will be a fun add-on or DLC later, as opposed to telling them right out the gates that they're going to get it. Have a very nice, clear, attractive thumbnail. This is your first point of contact with many of your potential backers. It's important that they know what kind of game it is just by scrolling through. We tried out a bunch of different thumbnails, even some that we thought were really pretty and nice ones, but we actually just landed on one that quickly tells people right away what the game is in it. In our case, it was a tactical RPG. We had to express tactical RPG right away because, like we said, nobody knew about it. So we didn't have a name that people were coming to check it out. We had to convey to people on Kickstarter what it was. We actually even set up a poll for our community to vote on what they thought the best one was. And we were surprised that they picked the thumbnail that we didn't really care for that much. And we even sent that same poll to like business people. And they're like, yeah, this one, use this one. And so we're like, okay, we're going with this one. And then we saw an increase. And thankfully, we had some analytics to show that when we made that change, people through Kickstarter were recognizing what our game actually was.
Tony, you want to talk to us about making a good Kickstarter page?
Yeah, so this was what a lot of our preparation was in that 2-month period too, is building out assets and Giphies and images that fit for the Kickstarter page, because it's quite an effort to get that done.
The most successful campaigns out there have very succinct pages. Projects with an average word count between 300 and 500 words tend to raise the most money, so you want to get straight to the point. Explain who, what, and why.
But there's a few little things that you should do, irrespective of what your game is. One of them includes put your face on it. So whether it be your face, your team, people are more likely to connect with you if they just know that it's a real person making the game.
And we're not just saying this too. If you show yourself in the video trailer, you're 10% more likely to be successful than other Kickstarters. So it's worth showing your face both in the video and in your page.
Have a trailer. You gotta have a trailer. Show your video, like show the gameplay. Let people know right away when they see it, oh, this kind of game. This is the kind of game I want to play. Don't spend too much time doing long videos about the storyline and the world or anything. Just get straight to the gameplay. Because that's what people are going to be coming for.
The reason you want to avoid filling the first couple shots with environmental stuff and things that don't really tell much about your game or product is only a few viewers will finish your trailer and watch it to the very end. So you want to make sure that you front load your trailer with all of the most important stuff in the very beginning.
Then have a link to your demo. You should have a demo because people want to play it. They want to test it themselves and see whether or not it's up their alley, right? So have that link to the the demo, be it Steam or Discord, at the very top, and make sure it's from an official place like Steam or Itch. We had it on Google Drive initially, and it just didn't look as great. It wasn't as professional, and you also can't count how many people actually look at them because it's just Google Drive, right? So there's actual analytics for both Steam and Itch. Don't use your Kickstarter page to cross-promote. It can be tempting because people love to support you and then you feel like you should support them, but really the Kickstarter page should just focus on your project solely. We receive messages from other folks who asked if they could cross-promote their game on our Kickstarter updates, but don't do this. People come to your Kickstarter page to see your project. If you do promotion, do it because they're directly tied to your project or because you're already funded and the project you're promoting will be received well by your followers because it's similar and it's in the same vein, right? But otherwise, just let them kindly know that you don't promote on yours and they shouldn't promote on theirs either, right? They should focus on their project as well.
Be communicative with updates and fast responses. So anytime someone leaves a comment on your Kickstarter page, make sure that you're responding to them within 24 hours. And we've mentioned this before, include instructions or action items for followers and backers. It can be easy to fall into the kind of update where you're just providing an update, so just include action items. It's really helpful.
Another thing that, because a lot of solo devs get into this mentality that you're a solo dev, right? You aren't actually alone in this.
Exactly. And here's something that you want to consider. Campaigns with teams raise 38% more. So your decision to work alone or with a team is a significant one. In the end, to each their own, just make sure you know the impact and choose wisely.
There are books, there are blogs, there are videos, and there are other fellow devs who have campaigned before you, and you can learn from them. Sometimes you can literally just reach out to them and talk to them. Other times you can just read what they did, be it in an AMA or just on a blog that they talk about their post-mortem. Educate yourself. Read what they did wrong, right? Because really you have to think about you're doing your backers a favor and you're taking advantage of all these free resources actually before you take the plunge so that you have the best possible Kickstarter. And we included a bunch of links to all these sites that we found very helpful just on our own journey. So make sure to read up on just how things went.
Speaking of which, we met some fantastic indie devs who have been creating an inspiring turn-based strategy game called Aspect Heroes. Besides being completely beautiful and thoughtfully created, it combines mechanics from games like Heroes of Might and Magic and Vampire Survivors. They're up on Steam right now, so do us a favor, check them out, and wishlist to support their development. Another pair of indie developers that we highly recommend you reach out to and check out are the makers of Circus Interstellar. It's a high-octane arcade shooter featuring space travelers in their fight for survival against a clown-like, very hungry alien race. Do check them out on Steam and try the game out for yourself.
And don't always look into like a super successful Kickstarter, right? Look for Kickstarters that are in a similar position to you, right? You're not going to be able to compare yourself to some big group that had 12 people on their team and a budget and a marketing budget of, $10,000. You got to compare yourself to similar indies and see what they did right and wrong. Make sure you have a Steam or an itch.io page at bare minimum so people can wishlist and follow you if they just don't want to back you on Kickstarter.
The other thing is setting up Google Analytics before day one. I think we set ours up mid-campaign, and it was useful to see how many people were coming to the Kickstarter page and where they were coming from. And before that, we were kind of blind. So whenever we'd change our thumbnail, for example, we had no idea of like what that was really doing for us. So if we were able to see, oh, this increased our viewership, that would have been really nice. Don't tell people you're hoping to make this or that. One of the things that I personally learned as I was promoting to different groups of people, and this was from someone who owned their own business, and she kind of coached me like, you need to have a solid business pitch. Like, don't make it sound like it's like this little thing that you're doing. When you are running a crowdfund, you're essentially getting funding, right, or investors into your business idea. You just want to make sure you flip that mentality to, I am making this, and be confident about what you have to offer. There's never a perfect time to launch a Kickstarter. You'll never feel ready, and it won't ever feel perfect either. You're going to feel like there's gaps and stuff or something that you want to make perfect, but I'm honestly really happy that Tony chose to launch the Kickstarter when he did, because all of this amazing progress that we've seen on Lords of Nysera so far has been immense. And it really started with him taking that thoughtful leap of faith. And we're not saying like dive into something without thinking. We're just saying that it is going to feel like a really big step. And you're going to get that feeling of, should I do it or not? As long as you've thought it through and you know the risks and you've prepared yourself the best you can, then take that leap of faith. The other thing you don't want to do is expect the campaign to fund on its own. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. There is work involved in running a Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, but there is this like feeling that once you have done all this work to get to kick it off, right? To actually launch it, that it's just gonna like do its own thing and it's just gonna succeed based off of how good of a page you had, right? But that is not how it works. It's all about promotion and getting eyeballs on your project, because Kickstarter will do nothing for you if you don't start it yourself. So you have to, the work is going to come from you in the end. Don't expect promotion to be easy. Even when the Kickstarter is out, it's really hard because there is a million other people who are promoting their games and their products and so on and so forth. So it's trial and error. There's going to be times where you put something out there and it does nothing. And there's going to be times that you put something out there and suddenly it does really well and you don't know why it did. So you just have to try things out and never stop trying, especially while the Kickstarter is going on. And if you're in a valley of death moment, you have to just keep it up. Don't give up and just keep going. Promote early. And by early, I mean months early, actually. Not while you're doing the Kickstarter, but well before it. Because that's when you see, as we'll get to, some of the most backing that you'll actually get in the entire campaign. So you really want to have a lot of people early on. Luckily, we had the convention, so we had a bit of a bump just because like we said, nobody knew about us and we hadn't promoted beforehand.
It's important to promote early so that you have enough followers that'll convert into backers the first week of your campaign. The percent funded mark you're striving for is 30%. The reason for this is Kickstarter released this cool chart that tells us 90% of all successful campaigns reach that 30% mark. So you want to reach 30% as soon as you can. The easiest way to calculate how many followers you'll need before you launch your Kickstarter is this. First, calculate 30% funded for your campaign. In our case, it was $3,600 because we had a $12,000 goal. This tells us how many backers we'll need to get to $3,600. And then we'll work backwards from there. We know that our follower to backer conversion rate is 15%. All we need to do is take those 300 backers, divide it by that 15% conversion rate, and boom. We have 2,000 followers we'll need before we even start the campaign.
The things that worked for us is starting pretty easy, essentially with friends and family, the people that you're most comfortable talking with, and work out from there. You may have doubts of someone reacting poorly to you reaching out about your project, but you will be surprised if you just try. People forget all the time, so remind them a second time. Don't be afraid to do that. We had friends who were bummed out that they forgot and missed out on an early bird spot, so they do appreciate it.
You gotta post on social media. It's kind of the dread of every developer that I've ever talked to, but you gotta do it. And the best way to do it is to directly promote to the people who will care about your game the most. That means people who like similar games as what you're making. And that means you just gotta get out there and post to them. It is tempting to talk to other developers and share your game with other developers, but remember, these are people who are making games, they're not necessarily your players. We got most of our backers from Reddit, actually, and our YouTube feature from Best Indie Games. So you need to know where the appropriate places you can promote to are on Reddit if you're doing that. And you gotta ask for permissions, and sometimes it requires a couple days for them to review it, and they might have restrictions anyways, so be prepared for that. And then you gotta have an action statement for every one of these posts that you make, whether it be a wish list on Steam, follow on Kickstarter, etc., etc. Make sure there is something that people know they can do right now to support the game. As far as ads go, we tried them. They did not work very well, but we also didn't have a whole lot of time to test them out and see what worked best. So it's tempting to like try and use it as a quick fix, but I don't suggest it, and we don't really suggest using them unless you know what you're doing.
So Mondays ended up being our big posting day. We kind of got into the routine of queuing up a post for Twitter and Reddit and all these other places on Sunday night and making sure that we could just like by 9 a.m. on Mondays, just send it out.
Campaigns with marketing plans raise almost 200% more. So it's worth it. Come up with a plan and don't miss out on that 80%.
Don't fall for scams, and they will come. As soon as you launch your game on Kickstarter, you will get a flood of spams, just of spam bots, telling you how they can help you get all sorts of funding and triple your followers or triple your blah blah blah. Just block them, report them to Kickstarter. Don't think that because you got a message through Kickstarter, through the messaging app, that they're legitimate, because most of them are not. What? It's actually against their rules to promote projects through messaging. So just immediately ignore them, get rid of them, and only look for people who are asking questions about your game and are backers, right? Who are just literally want to know specific things. So you got to keep on your toes. And it can be tempting when someone comes to you saying that they can improve your marketing scheme when you're in the valley of death and you feel like you're not going to complete it. But don't give in to these people. They don't want to help you, actually. And they're going to try and point you to all number of different things. Don't click on any links. Don't listen to them. Just block them. More of the story, when you're hungry, don't go to the grocery store.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and there might have been some folks who were earnest, right? Maybe they had a marketing company, etc. But we got so many messages.
I got only one out of I think like 70. I got 70 spam ones, and only one of them was an actual person. And they, and the first thing they said in their message is, "I promise I'm not one of those automated scam bots on Kickstarter." Which is like, I don't even want to listen. Even though you said that, I don't want to do anything. I don't want your help, right? Because that's not convincing.
Really hold your spot on the front or second page for your category. Over 70% of our backers came through the Kickstarter platform. So folks just scrolling through and noticing your project on the first couple swipes. So it's important to at least vie for this, right? Try to get on that front or second page. And there's two ways you can achieve that. The Projects We Love Kickstarter badge prioritizes you in the different lists that Kickstarter has. So you'll notice that there's like a magic filter up top, or you can sort projects by popularity. So the Projects We Love Kickstarter badge is a great one because you'll automatically be sorted up top for both of those lists. The second way you can on the front page is to get lots of traffic. And that is just straight up promotion and marketing and getting folks to discover your page through like YouTube posts, Twitter, etc. Pay attention to your Kickstarter analytics. There's actually this neat little dashboard that Kickstarter has built in to your creator dashboard. It's here you can learn where people are coming from to get to your page. It'll tell you which of your promotional campaigns are working best. This is essentially how we figured out, how many backers came from Reddit or YouTube or Facebook. It's also how we figured that the YouTube, Reddit, and Facebook ads weren't working as well for us. And then there's also this other cool stat in the Kickstarter analytics dashboard called the follower to backer ratio. It essentially tells you how many of your followers converted. So this is super useful because the typical conversion rate is 20% by the end of the campaign. So if you're sitting at around 15% mid-campaign, the good news is you can reliably expect a 2 to 5% spike at the end. And then lastly, the project video plays stat is on the dashboard as well. It tells you if the people coming to your page are watching your video to the end. And there's plenty of other Kickstarters that you can look at and how they fared every single day of their campaigns if you go to KickTrack. You can pretty much look up any comparable campaign and see how they fared.
So, what actually happened to our campaign? That's our next thing.
Yes. So, okay, day one. Day one, unknown to us, we would see the most backers we'd ever see for a single day for the rest of the campaign. I think there was another day towards the end that matched the number of backers we saw for the very first day, but that was like the peak. On day two, there was even less. And then on day three, even less. So we had this great start because of the convention. And then we had about 5 days after that where we started reaching out to friends and family, which turned out to be a lot of fun. And overall, the first like 5 to 8 days were pretty decent. And thankfully, Tony planned the convention that for the first couple days, which I think was actually, even though it was really tough, I think it was a really good idea.
After that first week, things really slowed down. We could basically call this infamous 15 days, or what others call the Valley of Death. This is the middle part of your campaign that happens to everybody. So don't be worried. This literally happens to even the best ones, like the ones that blow out their initial goals. They still hit this same trend. So nobody just has this meteoric rise that just goes on forever. Nonetheless, when you hit this middle part, it can sometimes be really discouraging because it'll get very slow and sometimes it will even flatline or go negative just for a little bit. And this can be an okay thing if you've already made your goal, but when you're in a situation like us where you're at like 30% and you're looking down the barrel of the rest of the campaign trying to figure out what you're supposed to do, that's really hard.
Yeah, so if you're like us and you're in that not feeling as great bucket when you get to the Valley of Death, it really is a test of fortitude. And frankly, it was pretty grueling. So it's not just you feeling that, it's in the numbers too. Backers are more hesitant to back because you haven't funded yet. And because of that lack of traffic, your project begins to like tick downwards to the second page and then the third page and so on and so forth. Starts to get buried. So this is where it gets interesting, you guys. For those of you specifically in the camp of, oh crap, am I gonna make it? Here are our list of do's and don'ts. Don't give in to the Valley of Death. This is pattern of behavior for all Kickstarter campaigns. It's a tough place to be in where you can lose hope just because things are going super slow. So just keep your nerves steady and aim to give yourself the best shot possible by keeping up with everything that you did in the very beginning, like being communicative or sending out posts to make people aware of your Kickstarter, things like that. Think of every moment, too, as an opportunity to try something new for your next campaign, so that in the end, it's a win-win for you no matter what happens.
So we worked really hard through those 16 days to make sure that it didn't slow down or stop because we were really worried we weren't going to make our goal. So we had to kind of scramble a bit to get it done and test out a bunch of stuff. So plan to make sure whether or not you're going to have to do the same thing or whether or not you can just write it out for that last couple days and meet your goal regardless. We did get really tired, and so by the very end, we were exhausted. We had nothing left in the tank, and we had to rest. But you just got to decide for yourself. If you're feeling comfortable with where you're at and you can see where your game is trending, even if you're just having people roll in, then you can rest a little bit and just kind of ride it out. But if you got to, you just gotta work really hard and make sure you get to that goal.
We might have been freaking out over nothing.
But we didn't know, right? Like we didn't know what to expect. We didn't even really know what the general trend of most Kickstarter was. So it was just we just had to figure it out.
That comes to our next thing. Planning in spikes.
The promotional spike that we did was a YouTube video featured on Best Indie Games channel. It was really nice because it provided backers, as well as us, excitement during the part of the campaign that was slower. Plus, it provided some needed backers towards the end of the campaign that discovered us through that channel.
And then do your updates. There's nothing wrong with updating your followers every time you feel like you've hit some kind of goal, whether it be every 10% or, hitting a stretch goal. Just update often. For one, it helps convert more because people are reminded, oh yeah, there's this project that I forgot to check out because I went back after a month and haven't looked at it.
Also, don't over update. Like, make sure the updates are truly updates, that you have something to talk about, and yeah, you just don't want to pester them. I was always kind of worried we updated too much, but if you look at other campaigns, it's kind of all over the place. Like, some folks only post like 10 updates for the entire campaign. I can't really say what the best thing is, but definitely more than one, and definitely less than
30.
30, yeah. There we go. We have a range.
One thing that you don't want to beat yourself up on is when people cancel their pledge. Rarely is it because they don't like your project. Usually they backed it because they liked it. Almost everyone who we asked about why they did said this thing. They said that they had a change in their finances and they had to change it. Lots of times too, they just bring their pledge down because they just need to do what they gotta do. It is nice to reach out for feedback sometimes, but mostly just expect them to be for it to be a personal thing.
So let's go right into the last leg of the campaign, when we departed the Valley of Death, and that was roughly about 9 days away from campaign end. Recap, 9 days out, $2,000 shy of our 12K goal. We had planned on a YouTube feature for Best Indie Games, and we had just gotten approvals from Reddit mods to promote the game on the Fire Emblem and JRPG Reddits, subreddits. This is the point we left the Valley of Death and began to head into the last hurrah of the campaign.
Yep. So the video promotion did well. It had 5,000 views in the first day, and by the end of the campaign, it was well over 10,000. The video did feature a dozen other indie games, so not all of those views were focused on ours specifically. But posting on Reddit was definitely our biggest success. Once we got those mod approvals, we sent it out and it was just in time because we had a lot of people who had no idea our game was out there and like accessible and kickstarting, and so they were glad that they got in on it before the end.
And then finally, we arrived at 99% of the goal. And that was a very exciting time to be part of the hype, and we even watched one of our fellow members push it over the finish line, and being there in the Discord when that happened was just so exciting.
So the first thing that you can and should do is update your thumbnail to reflect your funded status. Like, it doesn't hurt to add those little banners to it. It looks cool, and it's just kind of fun to see your page finally get that little added improvement on it.
After reaching funding, that's when we began to see lots of backers flooding in. And we also did see our follower to backer conversion go from 16% to 20%. We actually ended up making a very similar amount to when we first launched. There was a small tapering of daily backers towards the end, but by that time we were well above our goal, sitting at almost 150%.
Make sure to update at least before the last couple days because Kickstarter will do it on its own. It has like a 48-hour and I think an 8-hour update automatically that it does, and you see a lot of people who convert over that. But then we did a final update just ourselves to ensure that everybody knew just that we were finishing up and that we had X number of special tiers left, and if they wanted them, they had to get them now.
Yeah, and the thing about the automatic Kickstarter updates for the 48-hour and 8-hour, those emails are only sent to followers who haven't backed yet. It's also just a really nice courtesy update to just let the folks who were kind of on the fence grading their tier or adding an extra game key for one of their friends, etc. Just a nice reminder for the folks who fall into that group.
Yeah, because especially like people are not notified if something does change. So if you add an add-on, nobody knows. Like Kickstarter doesn't let people know that, so you have to actually let them know yourself.
Okay, so after the Kickstarter ended, we celebrated with our backers, and then we mad dashed to our favorite bubble tea place. We sent out a celebration update for everyone else who's not part of the Discord server, because we celebrated there for sure. It's a great feeling of relief too. So
There's 2 points. There's like when your project backs, right, is a huge relief. And then once it's over is like the you made it to Mordor and you're on the rock and there's lava everywhere around you. It's finally over. But you know, it was still so much fun. Such a thrill. That leads us to our bonus final segment, and these are the do's and don'ts post Kickstarter end. At the very end of your Kickstarter, there will be a bunch of what are called ghost backers. So these are people who set up bots to back sometimes $1, sometimes $100, sometimes $500, and they have a broken credit card link or bank account link. You can usually tell what they are because they have just a gobbledygook nonsense email attached to their account.
yeah, it was kind of crazy because you could tell that they were bots since they backed at the very last second.
Yeah, and they'll also usually back for no reward. The first thing you should do is take a break. We definitely needed it. We worked really hard for that month and we needed to rest. We are workaholics, so we still kind of worked, but we notched it down a lot compared to what we were doing. We took that time to just take a breather, to reflect, and to just communicate with all the backers, let them know what kind of rewards they got, remind people to do surveys or whatever you need to do, and just chat with people or do artwork like I did.
He did a lot of artwork, like starved artist.
If you're workaholics like us, it would be helpful to schedule when you're going to get started up again and then just tell yourself up until that point, it's time for you to rest so that you're fully charged to get right back on the horse.
You can only send out Kickstarter surveys once per tier. So you don't get to send out multiple ones. You can view them, I think, and I think maybe people can edit them, but you only get to send it out one time.
Yeah, and just to emphasize, there's the survey, which is survey Kickstarter provides you in your creator dashboard. And it's like if you navigate to, is it called like reward survey or fulfillment survey? Anywho, something like that. But it will say at the top, like you can only send this out once. When we talk about the survey, we're talking about that one.
Because of this restriction, we ended up choosing to send out custom Microsoft form surveys in order to collect what people want for their custom characters or items via the backer report. You can filter on specific tiers so that you're only emailing to those tiers.
Set up a place where your backers can congregate and where you can share mini updates that aren't necessarily like Kickstarter update worthy, right? We set up a Discord server for that, and it's also a great place to just be visible and available, reachable to your backers and followers. Final thoughts, Tony?
Stay positive. It's a rigorous, difficult process. It takes a ton of build up, and you're gonna be disappointed at times, but you just gotta keep chugging along, and hope for the best. Sometimes you may not be prepared as much as you wanted to be, but that's okay. Kickstarters are difficult, right? The best ones out there, they have teams. They have teams, and they usually have a presence. So don't compare yourself to these big old honkin' $1 million, $600,000 super backer projects, right? Um, just be happy with what you get and stay positive. That's the last do is to stay positive.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with that. I think having a really strong, resilient mentality and then being open to trying new things as you're going through the Kickstarter is pretty paramount.
You will
And
be tested. Your
yeah,
personality, the things that you think that you're doing right, it will be tested, but you will be fine.
but yeah, again, you're not alone in this. We found while we're going through the Kickstarter, there's just so many resources out there. And then also, there's just so many great people too.
That's it. Thank you guys. Hopefully this was helpful for those of you who are considering doing a Kickstarter. And if you have any other questions, of course, just hit us up.
As always, thanks everybody.
Bye-bye.